Breaking generational wealth divides. Let's gather around till stating tips. With here, you function eclipse. Something new, it's time to learn. So which does your return? In fast protected price, show it signing off as local top line. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another edition of Soul Talks Money and More. I am your host, Dr. Sabrina Edwin Williams, educator, author, and investor, opening minds and closing contracts. I am so noted, and I am so excited and so delighted to be here this second Monday in December. Now, if you know anybody that has young children, minor children, please call them, text them, turn them, tell them to turn their radio up because this conversation today is one that they will not want to miss. I guarantee. A few days ago, I was strolling through social media and I saw a post from a young Black mother. Her 6-year-old daughter, Sky, looked up and asked, Mommy, what will happen to me if you and Daddy both die at the same time? Now, I want you to sit with that question. Sit with that question because that is not just a child's fear. That is grown folks' problem that too many of us have never answered. We often tell our children, baby, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about a thing. But the truth is, many of us haven't done the work to make sure they really don't have to worry. And here's the reality, family. This is not just a far-fetched fear for Black children. Research shows that about 1 in 9 African American children will experience the death of a parent before they turn 18. Another report estimates that more than 2.2 million U.S. children have already lost a parent, or a co-resident parent, I should say, with around 850 more added each day. Get that? Every day people are dying. So when young Scott asked the question, what will happen to me if you both die? She is really asking, is there a plan? Am I safe? Who will protect me? Today, we're talking directly to every Black parent, grandparent, auntie, and godparent who loves a child. If you're just tuning in this morning, come on, get your coffee and come on, lean in, Facebook. We live on Facebook this morning. Got it working this morning. YouTube, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. And of course, my WMPR 90.1 and my WGDQ 93.1 FM listeners. This morning, we are talking about something that really impacts our community because Dr. Williams is always advocating for estate planning, and in many people's mind that conversation is something that can be put off until people are older. But the reality is, if you have young children, you need to be a part of this discussion today. I am so excited, you guys, to have an in-studio guest this morning. So it's not just Dr. Williams here talking about this morning, because when I saw that post on social media, trust me, I had to find that mother, and I am so excited that she agreed to join me here in the studio this morning. So we're going to have a conversation, and I applaud her, first of all, for her willingness to just be open and transparent. That's one of the things that I find as I go across the country with advocating for estate planning in the Black community. Often I find that there's a lot of shame. People don't want to talk. Now, they'll talk to Dr. Williams in private, but as far as having an open conversation about estate planning, people don't want to talk about that. So when I say I am so excited to have an in-studio guest this morning, trust me, I am. I applaud you, ma'am, and your willingness to come in. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to my studio or my listening audience. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. I am grateful and honored to be here, to be invited to have this very important conversation. For the listeners, good morning. I am Kenasha Whitehead. I am the founder and chief counsel of Whitehead Law and Consulting PLLC, where we are Christ centered and competent legal counsel for you, and especially for your churches and your faith based nonprofits and organizations. I am a wife and I am a mom of two small children, Sky, who is 6, Augie, who is 3. Our family has sort of we say we share our story of rare genes and resilient love. So I have albinism, and my husband, my 2 children have something called Marfan syndrome. So we're advocates in the community for just all things informing people that being different is creates an extraordinary life in all the ways, and so we try to share that light and that joy to all the families that we meet.
Okay, so this is an educational platform.
Yes, ma'am.
And I like for my listeners to be not only informed, but to be educated and enlightened. So, of course, as I said, we are streaming live on both Facebook and YouTube, but we have a listening audience who are not necessarily able to see you.
Okay.
So when you talk about these rare conditions, tell our audience what these are so that they understand what we're talking about when we say these terms, because a lot of times people don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's right. So I am a Black woman living with albinism, which means that I often joke when I speak to larger audience that I am a Black woman living in white woman's skin. I actually have a total lack of pigment in my skin, in my hair, and in my eyes. And I have something called oculocutaneous albinism too, which creates low vision for me. And my husband and my children have Marfan syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. It's kind of complicated to explain, but anywhere where there's connective tissue, they run risk for inflammation and tears and different things like that. So my husband's had multiple surgeries. He has a prosthetic heart valve. He's had a spinal fusion. My daughter, Sky, I was actually going to mention that when we talk about her at 4 years old, she had back-to-back what's called flexor tenotomy surgeries to correct her feet, because there's some physical symptoms that go along with it as well. For the most part, we all live a normal life, but there are those times where we're in medical crisis and we kind of navigate recoveries and different things like that. And Sky and Augie both, because of their enlarged aortas, they take adult blood pressure medications that are compounded for children, losartan, and then now Sky, because of kind of the rapid progression of that enlargement of her aorta, she's added a beta blocker. So she takes that medication daily. She's very, very mature and very, as you heard in my story, discerning and very perceptive. And I think some of her experiences as a young child, right? You know, pain brings about a unique perception.
Yes.
So I think some of that goes toward the wisdom that she has, even in asking that question.
It does. Okay, so I see you coming on in. Come on in, come on in. We are glad to have you. If you're just joining this conversation this morning, I am going to encourage you not to just listen, but text somebody, call somebody that you may know who has small children, because this is a conversation that they do not want to miss this morning. Now, and I want to make sure that I am I've been practicing, trying to make sure Nasha. Okay, Nasha. Okay, Nasha. I want you to take us back to that moment when Scott asked that question. So, what went through your mind? You have a 6-year-old who is sitting there, as you say, contemplating her fate. What is going to happen to me if you both die at the same time? I'm 6 years old.
It's a big question. It's a big question.
So what went through your mind?
Yes, ma'am. So I was moving about the house, and as she typically, as children do, was following me throughout the house, just asking me random questions. And I stopped to sit down. I want to say I was on my phone checking emails or something. And she asked the question. She said, "What would happen to me and Augie if both you and Dad died at the same time?" At first, I'm like, "Sis, where are you?" Because I'm engrossed in what I'm doing, but I immediately stop because of the gravity, right, of the question. And so, I share with her like who Dad and I talked about. She would become her and Augie's guardians in the event that we both passed away at the same time. And then she said, well, what if she died? What if she died with you? Because y'all ride in the car together. Hey, girl, you are go find something childlike to do, right? And so I shared with her, I said, well, we've talked about, I was stumbling, how I'm stumbling now, right? I was stumbling over my words because I just, I wanted to be careful and I wasn't in that moment, clearly wasn't prepared to navigate that conversation. And so I said, well, just rest assured that if something happens to Dad and me, we will have done everything we could to make sure that you and Augie are taken care of. Because she started asking questions about, if she was going to have to get a job and buy a house. Wow. And she was like, I can take care of Augie. Wow. If something happens to y'all, in her little mind, she really thought she could handle all of those responsibilities. And so I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want us to pause right there and think about that. We can sit here and kind of laugh at that as you are, replaying this in your mind. But the reality is that is a fear that many children probably live with. If your 6-year-old, could verbalize that this is a concern for me. I don't know how much of that was compounded by the fact that she does have some underlying medical issues. But for other children, think about how many children there are across the country that may have that same worry, fear in the back of their minds, but are not as bold as little Sky to verbalize that. And the reality is, like we just saw you stumble, many parents are probably thinking, those that are tuned in this morning that have never even contemplated that thought. I know we got them thinking this morning. Because if you look at statistics and you turn on the news every day, you get word every day that somebody that we knew, we have come into contact with along this thing called a life journey has passed away. And as my mother always says, it's them today. But one day they'll be getting the news that it's you. That's right. So make that alive. We don't. And I lost my dad when I was 7 years old. So I'm just acutely aware of the fact that children lose parents. I mean, you really do when you're kind of living in the day to day, you really do feel so detached from that reality, but we're all, we're just, right. But I think too, think about everything that we have to think about as parents. We're thinking about making sure they have a place to lay their head at night, making sure they have food on the table, making sure that they have clothes on their back, making sure that they are, properly educated and nurtured. And, if they're in activities at school, we got to make sure that we have the extra resources. Right? So there's so many things that as parents, and especially as young parents, that we're thinking about. So I think probably the last thing on our minds is, our death. But the reality is, again, because we know that this is happening and it is a concern for our children, now Dr. Williams is here to, again, strongly advocate, strongly encourage our parents to let it be a concern for us as well, because our babies are thinking about this. So let me ask you this. Will Scott ask this grown-up question? How did that make you feel? I was impressed. Okay. I was impressed. And admittedly, as a parent, a little mortified, a little embarrassed, right? That I couldn't articulate with ease in that moment what the plan was to comfort her. So I had to, I essentially, in a fun loving way, dismissed it. But I did tell her, we're gonna get a plan in place. It's gonna be good. Please find you something else, 6-year-old appropriate to think about. We got it taken care of, but yeah, she's always impressing me with how beyond her years she is. But after I made that post, so many parents in the comments and in messages reached out. And when I went home for Thanksgiving, I had a conversation with my cousin, who she and her husband have young children, minor children. And so many of them mentioned that their children too had asked some form of that question. And yeah, it's amazing because I remember, like, even before my dad passed, I never thought about my parents dying.
Because parents are not,
like, parents don't die when you're a kid. You know what I mean?
They die. Right. Don't die when we're young.
Right. That's right. So, I don't know. I don't even know where it came from. And it's amazing because in all the Disney movies, at least one parent generally dies in those movies. So you would think we would be more cognizant, but yeah.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Where do you think that question came from? Like, did she see something? Had you guys recently watched the Disney movie? What brought that on?
So she is my husband's grandmother passed sort of recently, and that was the first funeral she's ever attended.
Okay.
So that was her first time, seeing someone deceased that she knew. But I do notice when we watch the movies, because you know how these movies go, like these movies with the kids, because it's usually like one parent raising the child because the other parent has died. She always asks questions like, well, what happened to the mom, or what happened to the dad? Or so they're just living with their dad or just living with their mom? Are they sad? Are they going to grow up sad? So she always asks questions like that, but it's never sort of spilled over into the applicability or application to our family.
So I want to know from those of you that are in our viewing audience, if you're viewing this episode today, we'd like some feedback from you. Is this something you have even thought about? Or have your children ever approached you with some form of this question? What will happen to me? And more importantly, my question for you is, what have you done? Have you done anything to prepare so that when or if your children come to you with a similar question, that you're not stumbling, that you can look at them confidently and put aside any fears that they may have about their care, and that it will be continuous, and that you have actually made plans to protect them. So moving on, I want to know something. Before that moment when Scott asked that question, had you and her father ever discussed guardianship? Okay.
Yes, we had, and we have recently had another conversation since question, right? Of course. But it was very casual. And it's so interesting because one of the main reasons why I shared that post is because I'm an attorney and I help people prepare, their wills and, all of these sorts of things, their living wills and just their end of life preparation documents. But we have never put those documents in place, ourselves. So
let me do this. Let me give you a pass right here. I'm gonna give you a pass, and I'm gonna give you a pass because I want you to think about something. I remember us saying, you may not have ever heard this, but it has been said that, let's say, for instance, the hairdresser, she spends 8 to 10 hours a day making sure all the ladies on the block are looking nice.
That's right.
But then when you look at her head, it's kind of jacked up. It's like an auto mechanic. He spends all the time making sure everybody else is right.
That's right. I'm convicted.
But to your point, I think that means that we do have to give ourselves a level of grace when it comes to that, because we can become so in tune with helping others. And as I say that, I'm saying that jokingly to you, but I am giving you an opportunity to give yourself grace, because I too am in a season where I'm having to give myself grace, because I do, just as my personality, I spend so much time giving to others and doing for others and feeding it to others. And so part of what I have chosen to do in 2026 is to step back and to learn how to not be selfish, but to be self first.
That's right.
To be self first. And so I don't want you to beat yourself up over that. I mean, I think that's natural and normal behavior for many of us, that we do get so actively involved with helping others and doing for others that we forget too that we got to step back and take care of our own. Take care of ourselves.
That's right. Yeah. It's like the Apostle Paul says, after I preach the gospel, that I myself become a castaway. Exactly. So I do all these things, like you said, to bring my own body to discipline my own body, my own life.
Exactly.
So yeah, it happens for sure. But yeah, so when we had the conversation, I said that to say, when we had the conversation, it was very casual, right? And I don't even know what prompted it. So it was casual and didn't have a lot of legs to it in terms of, okay, well, what are next steps? Because like several of my probate clients, meaning, the clients that end up having to either like they have a little one who died intestate, or even with a will, but so you think it's so I'm embarrassed, right? Because it's like you think that, well, if something happens to us, like everybody kind of knows what to do, right? And it should be automatic for everyone. But I've seen I've seen the volatile, just brutal, ugly side of people dying thinking that their children and their grandchildren and their aunts and uncles are going to do the right thing. And oh man, you're talking about bottom falls out of the bag. So anyway, you didn't ask me for all that, but that was how we had it, like casual, like, oh, okay, well, this will be like a natural progression, we pass this person, we get the kids, but
I'm glad you talk about that ugly side, because I want to use this moment to just kind of share an experience that I had. I have tried to be very transparent on my platform. As I minister to others, I minister unto myself.
That's right.
So I've had a couple of instances throughout my lifetime where I've had family members to pass away with minor children, and there was no plan left behind. One, for example, that I can think of involved a situation where, unfortunately, a cousin of mine was killed in a drive-by shooting in New Orleans. Wrong place, wrong time. This is probably almost 20 years ago. Left behind 2 small children. She was not married to their father at the time. And if I remember correctly, I think there were different fathers.
Okay.
So
that
complicates things also. But it got ugly. It came to a point where my family was fighting so much to keep the children that one of my family members ended up being arrested.
Oh wow!
Because there was this battle over the children, and ultimately the court awarded guardianship to the father's family. So for many years, we never saw the children. In fact, I want to say last year, Labor Day, we got together in Hattiesburg, and one of the children is now of age, and he came. That was the first time I think I'd seen that child since his mother passed. So it can, when you die without a plan, things can get ugly, and it should never get to the point where you got people fighting, people are being arrested, incarcerated because of these type disputes. But the reality is, it happens.
That's right.
It really it does happen.
A lot.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this though. I heard you say you're an attorney, but let's go back to your childhood. When I think back to mine, I know this is not a conversation I ever heard my family talk about.
Yes.
Was that your reality?
No.
Did your family ever even discuss things like that?
No.
And sadly, that's the reality in our community.
No.
I would venture to say most of us are not having guardianship conversations.
No, man. We are, I in just kind of my legal practice, one of my mantras is that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, because our people, we are historically pound of cure.
Exactly.
People.
Yeah, we are.
So I appreciate platforms like this and people like you that are trying to turn that table, because no, ma'am, we did not talk about it. And and that's no dig at my family at all. It's just that it's what I'm saying. We just didn't you would be hard pressed, I'm sure, to find someone's family who has really had in-depth conversation, and Black families that have had in-depth conversations about this.
That is so true. That is so true. And that's the narrative that we are trying to change. That's the narrative that we're trying to change. If you've often wondered why Dr. Williams sits here week to week, month to month, Monday to Monday, advocating, why I travel, why I'm talking, why I do the things I do, it is because I think you've mentioned scripture quite a bit, but I think as we know better, we are called to do better. Absolutely. It's one thing when you don't know.
That's right.
But when you know, you are called to do better. Right. Again, I'll go back and share my personal testimony about how I got on this journey. For me, it was COVID. It was the pandemic. Okay. I was sitting there. You turn on the news, you turn on the radio, you pick up your phone, you go on social media. All you see is death, and particularly death of people that look like you. That's right. So it got me to thinking. It's like, okay, God, are you coming for me too? If you come for me, the first thing, all of us thought is, am I soul right?
That's right. That's right.
Do I have a business?
That's right.
That part.
That part.
First
right.
part.
Yes, ma'am.
Then the second part that you start to think about, for me was, are my affairs in order? Like, I do a lot as a mom. I do a lot for my family. I handle things. I know where the passwords are. I handle the banking information. If something happens to me, would my husband know? Would my children know where to look for certain things?
That's right.
And honestly, when I put the mirror in front of my face, the answer was no. And so that started me on my journey to wanting to know more and wanting to do more. But here's the real. I gotta be real. I started, but I didn't finish. I reached out to a few folks, talked to a few folks, and then COVID got a little better and things got a little better. Right. They let us go outside.
I might live a little longer.
I might live a little longer.
Got a little bit more time. Try to get everything together.
Right. And so I postponed it. It wasn't until really almost 3 years later when I found myself, what do we talk about? Being in the hot seat, staring down a situation that, thank God, did not manifest itself. But then I was like, okay, God, you got my attention now. Yeah. You got my, you were trying to get my attention back then. I saw what you were doing. But now I yield. Yeah. It's time for me to get something done about this. And so that for me, as I talk to, I minister to others and I encourage others, I'm not doing it from the standpoint of trying to talk down to anybody.
That's right.
I'm telling you what I did wrong and encouraging you not to be me, to be different from me, to take my learned experiences, my lived experiences, and not just mine, all of ours. Let's learn from that as a community. That's the only way that we make change. We cannot continue doing the same thing, not planning, not putting our wishes on paper and expecting different results. We're going to always have conflict. Always. But for you as an attorney, I guess that's a good thing.
Well, it's like it's I'm not waiting for it to happen, but because inevitably we know it will, I'm available when it does.
I'm available. All right. So we are at the half hour mark, and we've got to take a station break. Y'all don't leave me. Don't leave me. Come on back on the other side of this break. This is good. This is some good stuff this morning. I'm going to throw it to Studio A for a station break, and we'll be right back on the other side of this break.
FM, Jackson, Mississippi.
Words have power. They shape history, ignite movements, and reveal the soul of people. At Jackson State University,
WNPR 90.1 FM, Jackson, Mississippi.
All right, that was a quick break, y'all. That was a quick break they did on me there. Thank you. If you are just tuning in, welcome to So Talks Money and More. This morning, we are having that conversation. We are having the conversation that many parents with minor children need to hear. If you are in the Black community, if you know people, go ahead and text them. Go ahead and call them. Tell them to go to Facebook, go to YouTube, wherever they have to go. Go to turn the radio on. We're on WNPR 90.1 FM here in the Jackson metro area. We're also on WGDQ 93.1 FM in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We want everybody to tune in this morning because this is a conversation that we have got to stop putting off. Let me just kind of do a recap here this morning. As I mentioned in the first half hour, I was strolling on social media, minding my own business, might I add. But when I'm on there, I'm always looking for content. I'm looking for things to discuss on this platform. And I came across this story that really just spoke to my heart. I see this young mother has done a video, and she's talking about her young daughter, how her 6-year-old has challenged her to think about the inevitable. What would happen to her, the child, the 6-year-old, and her is the small brother?
Yes, ma'am.
If something were to happen to her mommy and daddy, who's going to take care of me? Now, the reality is, for many of us in the Black community that have minor children, this is not a conversation that we are having. It is a conversation that we need to have, though. Now, I want to go over some stats right quick. 1 in 9 African-American children will experience the death of a parent before the age of 18. More than 2.2 million U.S. children have lost a co-resident parent. Okay, that's somebody that's in the house with them. 2.2 million U.S. children. Black children make up about 20% of children who lost parents to COVID-19. And nearly 1 in 5 Black young adults, that's 18 to 29, have already lost a parent. So when I say this is a conversation that our community needs to be tuned into, trust me, this is. Now, one of the things that I'd like to encourage our listeners to do this morning, we have created what I'm calling a estate planning checklist that I have linked in my YouTube description over at I Am So Noted. And really, it's just kind of a checklist that will help spur us to start thinking and to start having conversations around what we need to do. maybe make us think about the things that we have not done if we have young children. I have an in-studio guest this morning because, y'all, when I saw that post, I was like, I'm on the hunt now. I have got to find this young mother. So I have Miss Kenasha.
Yes, ma'am.
Kenasha Whitehead is my guest this morning because she is the mom that was brave enough, that was bold enough to say, look, hey, my baby has asked me this question. I want you guys to know, not just because my child is asking the question, but because yours may have the same question as mine too. So I want to welcome you back to this half hour. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much. So let me ask you this question. Your baby asked you this question. Your 6-year-old is asking you this question, and you find yourself trying to respond, and you start thinking, do I really have a plan? You know what? I mean, in my mind, I know what's supposed to happen. Should something happen to us? But did you realize, or did you ever conclude that I don't really have a plan? I don't have a concrete plan? Or where did you go in your mind with that after that conversation?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a lawyer, I know that the plan we have right now is not concrete, that it would not hold up in a court of law. And I love how you have framed the conversation to say that if you don't make the plan, the decisions should belong to the parents, but they can only belong to us if we execute them and we express them in a written plan. Otherwise, everything is up to the courts, right? And so, yeah, I realized that because we don't have anything on paper, even having had conversations with, a few different people in our family, namely one about like, hey, this is what we would want, aside me telling her this is what we would want. That's, I mean, again, in my capacity as an attorney, and let's just say I'm on the other side of that, right? Like I'm representing someone who didn't hear that conversation and they also want access to the children. I'm going to be like, well, where's the proof that, we told, this person that that's what we want. So, the plan is not concrete because it doesn't hold up in a court of law. And, it's not concrete because the wishes that are in your heart, again, like they can't be properly executed otherwise. So,
So that you say that, and I want us to really think about something. And I'm so glad you guys, I have an attorney on the platform, because the reality is when we don't make plans, whether it's guardianship plans, whether it's our estate plans, what we basically do is say, I am turning over my rights, my will, to the will of someone else.
That's right.
Someone else that I may have never even met.
That's right.
I don't know. They don't know me. They don't know my children.
Right.
They don't know anything about our family dynamics.
Right.
But yet I trust this person enough with my children to be able to make a better decision for them than I, as their parent.
It sounds ludicrous.
It really does.
Like it sounds ludicrous. And it is ludicrous.
Right.
Like, and I'm not judging by it because my plans are getting in place. They haven't been in place. I can say when you frame it like that, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
And as much as we love our children, I can even admit, just from where I stand, it's not as caring, not as responsible as we could be, right? Like it's not good stewardship. So
stop right there. I want
no judgment.
No.
I'm talking about myself.
But you
go back to the post.
That was a good segue. That was a good segue into what I want to say. At the end of the day, whether it's providing instructions for the guardianship of our children, providing instructions for the transfer of our earthly goods, it all boils down to the word that you just said, stewardship.
Oh, yes.
And being good stewards of that which has been entrusted to our care.
That's right. And our children.
And our children have been entrusted to our care.
That's right.
We are called to be good stewards of that which is entrusted to our care. And so I don't want us to gloss over that. I want us to let that resonate within our souls and with our spirits.
Yes.
God has entrusted these beautiful children to us.
That's right.
So because we have no clue, no idea when our time will come, we do have a responsibility.
That's right.
To make sure that these babies feel secure, that they feel safe, and that we have adequately provided for their protection and for their future. Now that leads me somewhere where I wasn't planning to go, but since you opened the door, I'm going to say this. You know, when we look at, again, we say the statistics where we have 1 in 9 African-American children that are expected to experience the death of a parent before they reach the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
We got to start thinking about how we're leaving these children behind, you guys, because right now, here in this state of Mississippi, we have a lot of grandparents
That's right.
that are struggling
That's right.
to rear our children.
Mm-hmm.
They are struggling. Why? Because in many instances, we have not identified anyone other than our parents, which would be the children's grandparents, to take on their responsibility. So they struggle. They're struggling because they are advanced in age. A lot of times they're struggling because they are not financially secure enough to be able to take on the additional responsibilities. And they're struggling, you guys, because these kids is a different generation, you know. And I say that, you know, y'all know they different. Yeah, we love them, but y'all know they different. Y'all know these kids are different. The stuff that work with us does not work with them. And you think about it, they're exposed to so much technology and, you know, AI and all of these different things. So their reality is a lot different from the world. I mean, you're a little bit younger than I am, but even the world that I grew up in, it's so different now. So it's a struggle for grandparents a lot of times to take on that responsibility. You know, we have, I don't know if you're familiar with Grandparents Really Do Matter, where we have people here that are advocating.
Yes, I actually met someone who is volunteering in that organization.
Yeah.
Just maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was astounded at the work they're doing, but also the need for that kind of work because of the circumstances that you described.
Right. I mean, they're struggling to take care of these kids. They want to. They love them. They realize that they, you know, they have, in some instances, a moral obligation to take that on, that responsibility. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, the world that we live in now is hard. It is very difficult to take on that responsibility.
It is. And my husband and I, when we were talking through sort of that list of like who's the immediate guardian and then who would be the alternates. I mean, you know, the pickings were slim, not because we don't have an amazing support system or an amazing trustworthy group of people to choose from, but there are a lot of factors, and capacity is one of them.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Like you have to think about.
Absolutely.
Yes, there's so many people in our family and even in our friend circle who love our children, who we would trust to love our children, even as we do in the event that we both are gone. But do they have the capacity to, you know, take care of 2 young children? First of all, 6 and 3, that's different from, you know, 12 and 15 or that's right. It's so different. So do they have that capacity? Our children have medical needs. They've got a lot of appointments and therapies and medications. And, you know, again, doctors are predicting long, hard recoveries for some of their surgical needs. So you know, thinking about that, age, you know, is a part, like you mentioned, age is a part of that. And so when you're kind of charting out your your values, as well as, again, those capacity needs, financial stability, it automatically kind of knocks some people out of the running, because you're like, well, I would want to, put that on them. And it's not that I know they wouldn't do it, like you said, that they would take on that moral obligation to do it in a heartbeat. But, is it practical? Because the thing is, too, another thing I was telling my husband, I was like, I think, too, as we write everything out, because you can be as specific as you want to be in these guardianship documents. And actually, the more specific you are, the more, right. It advises the judge. The more specifics that judge has, then the more likely he or she is to make whatever that ruling is, in your favor. But you can also say, like, I want these people to still be a part of my child's life. I want them to have, an integral role. I don't want whoever the guardians are that you designate to, isolate these people. I want them to still be able to be involved, to have a visitation schedule.
Right.
Like I said, you can be as specific as you want. So those are really good points.
Well, again, when you say that, you make me think, and I'm trying to be as transparent as I can be with my own life. Because I think, again, in our community, a lot of times there's shame around everything for whatever reason. I don't know who has taught us that. We got to be ashamed of everything. All right. Life is about learning. Everything is a learning experience. It either happens for a lesson or a blessing. And we just got to accept that and keep it moving. So I can remember being, 16 years old. I lost an aunt, which was one of my favorite aunts, if I'm being honest, in a car accident. She was 36 years old. She left behind 2 children. I think they were somewhere around maybe 4 years old and maybe 10 or so. Again, she was married. She had a husband, and the children initially stayed with the husband, but let's just say he had some issues. Okay. And the issues got worse. As time went on. He later found himself incarcerated. So now you have these 2 young children. Mother's dead. I can't. Can I say that? I'm sorry. Unalive. Don't touch me. I'm sorry.
I never know what the.
I'm sorry.
What the
mother is no longer of this world. Father is incarcerated, and the children, they're just kind of left and being tossed from kind of place to place. Of course, this was on my maternal side, so my mother and one of her sisters stepped up. But you think about that. What would have happened to those children if there were no aunts to kind of step up and step in and try to help rear? And especially you're talking, the 4-year-old was a girl, the older child was a boy. So one of the things that I spent the entire month of September advocating for, educating on, and trying to make sure that our community was aware of is the need for life insurance. Need for life insurance. A lot of times, people get it confused. Life insurance really is about life. And it can be about your life if you understand how to really use life insurance. But certainly we got to think about the life that we leave behind. Once we leave this world. Because the reality is, to your point, you just said you have children that have medical conditions. So you can find the best guardian in the world, but if they don't have the resources to be able to help your babies see them through these medical procedures that they have to have, we still, as a parent, haven't quite done the thing that we need to do. So I want to just kind of speak life into you and encourage you along your journey to be thinking about that, mastering that if you have not already done so, to master that as well. We have got to start leaving resources behind, you guys. That's one of the ways that we are going to create this thing called generational wealth. We got to turn Netflix off. We got to put
Mhm.
these phones down
That's
and
it.
stop scrolling. And we got to start educating ourselves on the things that matter so that we can leave something behind. So I am encouraging the listeners to go back. If you were not a part of that conversation back in September, we have all of those videos on our YouTube page. Please go back. I mean, we broke it down to the basics. What is life insurance? The different types of life insurance, because it is so important. Now, I want to just kind of shift the conversation back again. So, what steps have you started? I mean, certainly you're here sharing your story, but what steps have you started since that conversation with Scott?
So my husband and I have been having much more intentional conversations, and now I'm writing and typing, right? As we look toward formalizing a document soon, definitely within the next 30 to 60 days. And you think about when you got, you think you have time, right? It's funny because you think you have time. And I am representing a family now who's the decedent, I don't be careful how I say it, was going to formalize a will less than 24 hours before passing. So we might try to speed that time frame up. But right now, I'm actually putting pen to paper, which I think for me is like half of finishing is actually starting. And I've never gotten that far to actually put pen to paper. So we've been talking about all the things, advanced directives, because in the midst of that too, like you think about dying and leaving your children vulnerable, but also incapacitation is a huge thing.
Right.
And if I read a statistic, it's been a while ago now, that in these sorts of circumstances, you're more likely to kind of get enthralled in those sorts of guardianship court battles around someone becoming, like your guardian becoming incapacitated than dying, right?
So you bring up a great point. I gotta jump in here there.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have not read my book, and I know it's not a lot of you out there.
That's right. I'm about to be in the number.
Have not had the pleasure of reading Learning to Trust, the Black Family's Guide for Building, Protecting, and Transferring Wealth. We have a whole chapter where we talk about that.
Okay.
Just what you mentioned. And the example that we use is one that most people can relate to, Wendy Williams, and everything that was going on. I think some things have kind of leveled out for Wendy now. But at one point, Wendy was going through.
That's right.
And a lot of it was because of what you said. It wasn't death, it was incapacitation.
That's right.
And because she was incapacitated, and obviously there were no plans. See, that's how you know when folks don't have their stuff in order. Anytime you start hearing words like conservatorship, guardianship, and all this stuff, that just means folks that died and didn't have their stuff in order, or they got sick and incapacitated and stuff went in order. So that means, again, we say that we put more trust in the courts to determine what's best and who's best for us than we do in our own judgment. So I encourage you guys, if you have not, Christmas time is coming up. So go on over there. The website is www.iamsenoted.co. We have the link in the description on our YouTube page. So we do encourage you to go get that book. We tried to write it in a way that was very, very easy for families to read and to understand. But the reality is, as my beautiful guest has said this morning, it's not just about getting and hearing the information. The word tells us we got to be hearers and doers of that word. So I encourage you, don't just read it. That's the disappointing part for me, when people say, oh yeah, I read your book, but what have you done? We're here to spur you to action. My word for 2025, y'all, if y'all been following, it was implementation. And I hadn't said it in a while, but I gotta say it. Okay. Unless and until there is some implementation, your situation is not going to change. I can give you all the education, I can give you all the information, but unless and until there is some implementation, some action, that's what that means. You got to do something. If you do nothing, nothing else is going to happen. If you don't change, nothing else is going to change for you. Okay, so that's whether that's with your estate plan, whether that's with getting your plans together for your children. The new year is coming. A lot of us, I've seen posts, I don't know about you on social media, people talk about, 2025 wasn't a good year for me. Well, what you going to do different in 2026? If you don't try to do something different in 2026, guess what?
That's right.
2025 is going to roll forward. It's going to roll forward. So we want to encourage our listeners. We want to encourage our viewers. Let's do something different. Now, watching the time. Well, can I see the time, girl? I can't even see over the clock. I think it's my time for us to listen, Joe. Okay, where's my help? Where's my help? We got to wrap this one up. It has been a pleasure this morning having Miss Attorney. I want to give you your propers. Attorney Kinasha Whitehead in the studio this morning. Now, as we close today, I want to go back to the question that started this conversation. What will happen to me if you and Daddy both die at the same time? That is a question no 6-year-old should have to carry. And estate planning is how we remove that burden from our children. Black children experience parental loss earlier and more often than other groups, but we have the power to step in with preparation, protection, and love. Now, family, I don't want you to just feel convicted. I want you to do something. Let me say that again, in case you didn't understand the words that were coming out of my mouth. You sat here this morning, and I'm so happy to all the viewers, all the listeners that have tuned in. And maybe, just maybe, we hit a nerve. As the preacher said, maybe I was on your road this morning. And if I was, I don't want you just to feel convicted. We need to do something. Now, if you are viewing us on YouTube, go on over there and download that estate planning checklist that's in the YouTube description and go ahead and start taking action this week. This week. Name some guardians, update your documents, whatever those may be, your beneficiary documents, review your life insurance policy. If you don't have any life insurance, go get you some. Please go get you some.
And your children.
On you and your babies. Protect those babies. Love is emotional, but protection is practical, you guys. Now, this has been So Talks Money and More. And before I close the show for the day, I got to stop and pause. I got some news, you guys, this weekend. I'm sure you've noticed if you followed the show that my co-pilot, Mr. Larry Armstrong, has been out for some time. Unfortunately, his son has passed on, and we want to send our thoughts, our prayers, and our condolences to the Armstrong family in the passing of his son, Mr. Larry Armstrong Jr. Mr. Armstrong, we love you. We are praying for you, your WMPR 90.1 FM family. We're here, we're one family, and as my co-pilot over here, Mr. Jones, always says it's Mr. Armstrong's time today, but it could be our time tomorrow. So y'all, let's please keep him lifted in our thoughts and prayers. Miss Whitehead, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio. It has been a great episode. If you have friends and family that were not able to join this episode live, please go back and watch the replay, you guys. This is some good stuff. It has been real, but I got to go. Mr. Jones, you know what to do. Peace. That's where my outro is supposed to start, Mr. Jones. That's where I'm supposed to hear my music. Come on back, Mr. Strong. Come on back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you. That was great.